Welcome to Find the Connection, the podcast where we explore the history, development, events, and stories that make Northeast Florida so inviting. I'm your host, Kendra Robertson, a real estate professional, community leader, wellness ambassador, and proud resident of Jacksonville Beach for over 30 years. In each episode, we'll dive into the stories of the people that are making a difference, both at a local level and nationally. We'll share an inside look at real estate with tips for maintaining work-life balance, from winning your mornings to winning your day, all while staying connected with our vibrant local community. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's find the connection between community and living your best life. Today, I have Sarah Avilla with me. She is passionate about helping women create success without sacrificing health, happiness, and their well-being. And we actually met through the Keller Williams wellness community, and she is playing a role in supporting the Keller Williams family in creating that success. So, Sarah, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, explain a little bit what you do. Let's start there.
Yeah, okay. So the work that I do, it's all supporting the nervous system. And I really tackle it from an emotional perspective, but also like a physiological perspective. And the work that I would say like 85% though of like the work I do with clients is really focused on building like emotional resilience and emotional regulation and helping the nervous system understand that not everything is a threat or that it doesn't need to go into protection mode anytime we experience something new or unfamiliar or challenging. But I do that from a perspective of neuroscience and understanding like how the brain works and how the brain changes. So the focus is really on creating this very like stable nervous system foundation. And once we kind of create that really stable nervous system foundation, you can build the really pretty lights and like you can put all the things in place that help you to really flourish and thrive.
I totally get that. I had an unhealthy decade and my circadian rhythm is now very much consistent. I start my day with a mile in the ocean at sunrise. And it is amazing just how regulating your body just translates into so many aspects. Really is.
Yeah.
I think society in general, women in general, working women, busy moms at work, it is so prevalent, that dysregulation. So how did this become a passion of yours?
Yeah. So I did not like graduate college and think to myself that I wanted to do this work. I didn't even know that I think the possibility of this existed. But I very much grew up as a high achiever. I played competitive soccer through college. I felt like the expectation was always that I needed to get like straight A's and that nothing else was allowed. And, it's funny to laugh on it now, but it was also very much a sign of a much deeper pattern that I've been working on myself. But, I graduated college on a Saturday and I started my first job on Monday.
Wow.
And the job was already lined up because I had the internship, and it was like very much this, like, I think I came from this understanding, or the way that I perceived the world was just like that I had to like follow this path and this timeline and climb the career ladder, and that success, that I was like chasing success in a way. And what success meant to me at that time was very much make a lot of money and have like a really respectable title where I'm like in a leadership position. And that was like, I think that started probably like put me into about a 10-year burnout cycle where I was just like constantly chasing this like feeling of success, not really knowing like what feeling I was chasing. So back up, I started this job in pharmaceuticals, project planning, right out of college, worked there for 6 months, got fired, and at the same time also got out of like a relationship that I thought, this is the person I'm going to marry and all of these things, and moved to New York City 3 months later. And kind of entered the rat race, like I like to call it. It was very much hustle culture, like work harder. And I was surrounded by so many peers that I was like, if I just work harder than everyone else, then I'll get to where I'm trying to go. Right. And it was so unhealthy. I'd work like 16-hour days and I'd be in the office till 4 a.m. And I got a dog during this time because I was like, if I have a dog, then maybe it'll force me to go home, like I won't be in the office all night long. And yes, I did go home, but then I came back. So like, it was like, so I was very much kind of stuck in this pattern of just chasing what I thought success was. And I wasn't making a lot of money at the time, and I wasn't getting promoted. So I was just like, oh, that just means I have to work harder. And what essentially happened was I just entered this like burnout cycle that was fueled by external validation and achieving and producing. And I didn't realize this until I was like 32 years old. So I'm now 38, but like I was stuck in it for such a long period of time that during that period of time, I developed I had always had like acne as a teenager, but it like came back in my 20s. I had really bad like digestion problems. I had other health issues that weren't diagnosed issues, but I didn't feel good. And I was always sort of into health and wellness because I played soccer, but I also considered being healthy as being active and thin. I didn't really consider it as like what was happening inside. And I think it was like 2014, I went on like a random juice cleanse and it was like January 1st. So it was like, I went on a juice cleanse, shifted the way I was eating. And I just noticed like all these changes happening like within 30 days where I like my energy went up, my skin cleared, my digestion felt better. And it got me, I wasn't happy in my career at that time. Like I was very much, I was just chasing success. I didn't know what I wanted, and this was like the first time where I was like, I felt really passionately about something. And I kind of did my own like research and like changed my own habits and things like that and saw a lot of change and decided that I wanted to do like holistic health coaching because I didn't want to go back for 4 years of college to become like a registered dietitian. I was just like, I've already have debt. I don't want more debt. And that was like, I feel like a toe dip into the water of what wellness is and what health is. And I really wanted to understand like nutrition and how it impacted the body. And meanwhile, I was doing all of these like certifications and coaching on the side while I had my full-time job. So it was like a lot. And in 2019, I got married and had my son in 2020 in California, which was really shut down, during the pandemic.
Right.
And I didn't have a lot of support. I didn't have family around. And I was working in a job that was not very fulfilling for me. I worked in tech and project management. Also at the same time having these like passions that I felt like I couldn't figure out how to launch or how to get out of my own way in terms to make into like successful businesses so that I could leave that job. And in 2020, while I was 5 months postpartum, I decided to go back to get my functional nutrition certification because I had gained 50 pounds in my pregnancy, which was like more weight than I had ever gained in my life. And I was having a really difficult time losing it. And I wanted to understand better, like how my hormones worked and all of these things. And I went back and I was like, oh, this feels like the missing piece that I needed when I got my health coaching certification that would help me to feel more confident to actually start doing this work. And I ended up getting the courage to like quit that job and went into functional nutrition coaching and did that for a period of time. But what I found was that I just kept getting in my own way. Like the imposter syndrome started getting like louder and louder. It was like, even though I felt very like balanced in my body, the like anxiety just like became really loud. It was like I could hear it louder because everything else felt balanced in my body. And at that point, I was starting to basically self-sabotage my own business. I had been doing like functional nutrition coaching for about a year and a half at that point, and I cut off all my clients because I felt so anxious about like the money coming in, the financial stability, the can I do this? Do I know enough? Am I expert enough? Why are people going to listen to me? Like, I got so stuck in that I started having panic attacks like pretty regularly. And I was like, I need to figure this out because this is just like a pattern that keeps repeating itself like over and over and over again. And what I found was that like I read a lot of books, I went to therapy, I listened to the podcast, and I like learned a lot of information, but it knowing didn't change how I responded. And I was so frustrated in that. And that sort of led me to find tapping, which is the majority of the work that I do now, and working one-on-one with a practitioner. And it was just like, I don't know, like a light flipped on in my head, like all of a sudden of, wow, like I'm able to shift and change how I respond. And this, like these patterns don't just have to be the way I live. Because I think, you know, like I was at the time I was 32 and I was just like, okay, life doesn't feel good and I'm really young. So if this is what I have to look forward to for the next X amount of years and I'm a new mom, I don't want to be like miserable or feel miserable as I'm like trying to raise my son. And I don't want to feel like this, you know, because work is such like a big part of my life. Like I love working. Like I love the work that I get to do. Like I love working hard for something that I love. And, but I didn't want it to feel like that. I didn't want to feel like I was still chasing achievement and chasing productivity. And it was so interesting. I feel like the more that I chased it and that I got it, the feeling that came, I never achieved that feeling, you know, like I would get to the level and it would just feel empty. And what I figured out was that I was like outsourcing my self-worth to like things outside of myself. And that if I ever wanted to change that, I had to like bring it back in. Like I had to find my self-worth within myself for who I am, not for what I produce and what I achieve.
Well, I think so many people tie their worth to a job, you know? And I mean, a lot of people that are going into retirement don't know how to retire because they're so used to the job, you know? So your experience definitely seems to support knowing, you know, what a lot of women in general, you know, in particular are going through. So the defining moment of realizing you could help people, when did that happen?
I think it was when I started to experience my own really radical shifts and changes within just a few sessions of tapping. Like,
and explain tapping. I know
yeah,
there's a lot of modalities that use the theory, but I don't know how deep you get. Like, how, you know, explain that to someone who doesn't know what it is.
yeah. So the formal name of it is EFT, and that stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it's essentially, we tap on acupressure points on the body. So a lot of them are the same that you would find with acupuncture, if anyone's familiar with that. And when we tap on these points, what happens is that it sends a calming message to your amygdala, which is your brain's fear center. So your amygdala is like, your nervous system is always like perceiving, is always like asking the question, like scanning your whole environment without you ever being consciously aware of it and asking like, is this safe or is this threatening? And if it's threatening, it'll signal the amygdala to sound the alarm. And that starts a whole biochemical process of sending a message down to your adrenal glands that release like cortisol and adrenaline. And that's how your body, that's how you know you're stressed. And this all happens in like split seconds. So fast. And what signals that like what determines whether or not that stress response goes off is based on how you are perceiving your environment. So our perceptions are they're shaped by all of our experiences during our life. So experiences that go all the way back to like when you were born, basically. And so like with tapping, when we tap on these points, it's sending a calming message to the amygdala. So we can tap on lots of things, but the way that I use this is really helping people to work through their limiting beliefs and helping them to release stress and reduce stress. Like you can think of like if you're feeling, the way your nervous system communicates is through your emotions. So if like stress is like such a broad word for how we feel, I think like overwhelm comes up, like overthinking. How do you know you're stressed? Like, oh, I'm overthinking, I'm overanalyzing. Like I feel this tightness in my chest. So as we tap on these points, we say how we're feeling. So like I'm feeling stressed. I feel this tightness in my chest when I think about the situation. And essentially, like if the stress and the overwhelm and the like tightness in your chest is like turned up to like a level 8, as we tap, it shifts how our nervous system perceives the situation. It essentially like starts to neutralize it. So it's not like you're never going to feel stressed again. It's not like you're never going to feel overwhelmed again. You are, but can you allow yourself to feel those things without turning on protection mode? So like as we tap, people will be like, oh, that like the intensity of that has gone down from like an 8 to a 2. And it's like, if there's no longer like that blaring alarm going off, the way we respond and the way we take action changes significantly, right? So if like you're not feeling anxious about going to have that conversation, then you just have the conversation. I don't know, that was like a long-winded way to introduce it, but do you have any questions about that?
I gotta stop saying so. I feel like so. The tapping, do you recommend a certain setting, or is that something that you can just do anywhere, or do you instruct people to do it in a quiet room? Like, what's the protocol?
Yeah, so I mean, you can really do it anywhere. Like you can do it I've had people do it in their car if they're feeling anxious. Like there are certain points that you can do with tapping where it's a little bit more discreet. So like for people who might be like, sitting in a meeting and they're feeling anxiety about like speaking up or something like that, there's like certain tapping points you can like do kind of like below the table, or that you can like kind of squeeze certain points, which activates like the same pathways. But it's like, it's whenever and wherever. Sometimes I'm like in my kitchen making myself a matcha and I'm like thinking about something that's going to happen that day or a situation that I'm going to be going into or something that I'm overthinking. And I'll just be like, and I'll just tap on it. So it's really like you can do it so like the science shows that 5 minutes of tapping can turn off your stress response for 90 minutes. And 1 hour of tapping, like if you were to do it like one-on-one with someone, 1 hour of tapping can reduce your cortisol levels by 43%.
Wow.
Which is significant. So it's like we think about it sort of like as an off switch for stress.
So can you give me an example of success with a client? Like what point she started at and where you took her?
Yeah. So normally people come in and they have like a certain goal, or if they don't have a goal, they're just like, I'm feeling just stressed in general. One of the things that I really love with tapping is that you don't have to give me a whole lot of information in order for us to get started. Like I don't need to know the whole background. I don't need to know how you grew up. I don't need to know like all of those things. I just need to know like, what are you feeling right now about what situation? So for example, I'll use this example without naming names. I had a client that she's starting to date again after being divorced and feeling a lot of anxiety because the relationship is moving at a slower pace than she's used to. And, so where we started was she was like, I'm just feeling anxious about this relationship and I feel like I'm going to self-sabotage it. And where I want to get to is feeling like secure, trusting in myself, and being able to kind of like detach my energy, so that I'm not so analyzing everything by the end of the session. I was like, okay, so where we may start is be like, I'm feeling anxious about this relationship. And we'll start there. And as we move through, I may ask some questions like, how do you know you're feeling anxious? And, she would say, like, I feel this pressure in my head. And I was like, okay, like, so we tap on the pressure. What does the pressure feel like? Does it feel like it feels like a heavy weight? It feels like I'm putting so much pressure on this relationship. And after we tap on that for a little bit, I might ask, what is this pressure trying to protect me from? Because the nervous system's always trying to protect us. And those sensations that show up are often the ways that our nervous system's communicating with us. So I might ask her, how is this trying to protect me? Or what does this pressure want to tell me? And then she answers that as we're tapping. Because as we're tapping, like we're essentially like our walls are coming down in a way, because we're moving out of that protection mode. But we're also able to access our subconscious, which our subconscious controls, I think they say, about like 95% of your behaviors and your actions and your thoughts and all of that, whereas like 5% is really just your conscious brain. When we tap through that, I ask them where they're feeling that anxious feeling. Because what I've found is a lot of times the body communicates with us before like our mind starts to make sense of it, right? So it's like our body's communicating with us, but a lot of us are like, nope, push it down. Like, we're just going to push past that, because I think we've also been taught, right? It's push through, keep pushing through. And what I've found is the more that I listen to my body and the more that I honor what my body's feeling and how I'm feeling emotionally, that naturally on the other side is all this motivation and excitement and this drive and this ambition that I want to feel towards like doing the thing that I want to do. Instead of pushing it down, we honor it and we name it and we validate it and we hold space for it. And when we no longer feel that like tension in our chest or like that like knot in your throat, if you're like afraid to say something, like our brain doesn't start making a whole bunch of stories about what it means. So a big part of tapping is like releasing that sensation that you may feel in your body. And then as we do that, I start to ask the question, what is this trying to protect me from? What is this trying to tell me? Is this feeling familiar? How old is this feeling? And, I'll have clients say, I remember feeling this way when I was 8. Like, I remember feeling this way when I was really little. And it's like a lot of our beliefs, a lot of our patterns, they're not patterns that just started now. They started a long time ago and they've been reinforced over and over and over again. And like I tell people, each of those patterns is like a neural pathway in your brain. So think about like a pathway that you've been going down over and over and over again since you were 8 years old is like a mega highway in your brain. It's a very default pattern. Whereas, so like in order to interrupt that pattern, we have to get mindful about where it's showing up in our life currently. And we can do that with tapping. So I like to say, like, sometimes you experience a trigger and you respond like this. There's no space between like what you experience and how you respond. With tapping, it's like we start to create space. And when we create that space, you can notice, oh, I'm being triggered. I can see that it's connected to this. In that space, you get to choose how you respond. You can choose to respond in a way that is supportive for like the growth that you'd like to see, or you can choose to reinforce the pattern with a different behavior.
So do you collaborate with other practitioners? I mean, I'm hearing you like this is a solution, but I also know for my own growth, I was that rock of the family, the Zen, like nothing rattles Kendra. But I realized that I was shoving those feelings down, or I had anxiety, but you don't see it because I hold it in, and then it manifests into health reasons. Or I also discovered when I stopped drinking that I actually had to feel my feelings. where alcohol numbed that, it caused its own issues. So who do you collaborate with to support your therapies?
I tend to collaborate a lot with like chiropractors because they're already in like a nervous system focus. So, like the work that I'm doing is like complementary to that. But I feel like anyone, like really any profession that's like in some sort of strategy or information role, someone could tell you the right strategy to grow your business or give you the right strategy to fix your hormonal imbalances. But at the end of the day, it requires that you actually make a behavioral change. And there's often like emotions that are tied to that as well. So I really love working with like people who provide a strategy and working with the person to help them actually to make the behavioral and the habit and the belief changes that allow that strategy to actually be implemented and for it to actually work. Because again, it comes back to like, you can have all the information in the world. You can find information all over the internet, right? But if you actually do it, it's a whole different thing. Yeah.
So if someone is, appearing successful and, but has the inner battles and comes to you, do you have a prescribed therapy? Do you have a program? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah. So I start kind of everyone off with like what I call like a nervous system foundation where I take a really detailed audit of kind of all the ways that their nervous system may be trying to keep them in protection mode. And that includes like nutritional and lifestyle perspective as well. And so we start there, but I also ask them, what are the patterns that you notice coming up? Where are you trying to get to? And what do you notice keeps like coming up? Is it like, what are the thoughts that are coming up? What are the behavioral patterns that you notice coming up? And we identify those. And then I give them the strategy in terms of like, this is how I recommend supporting your nervous system from a physiological perspective so that those changes can actually take root. Because a part of what happens with the brain is if the brain doesn't feel safe, it actually will resist change more. So creating like safety in the body from a physiological perspective, I think is like a missing piece that is really necessary in order to make those deeper like belief and behavioral shifts and the habit shifts. But from there, once they have their assessment, I work with them for like a minimum of 90 days where we do sessions that, depending on where they're at, like how stressed, how burnt out they are. I may recommend 3 sessions a month, but if they're more so like, I just want more like accountability and support making these behavioral changes, it might be like 2 times a month. It really depends on the person. And all of those sessions are really I don't want to say self-guided. I'm like facilitating the process, but we're really working on identifying what are the beliefs that are standing in the way, what are like the patterns, what are the triggers, and working on those in real time. And the way that, like tapping helps us to have more clarity in terms of where we're blocked and where we're stuck, but it also helps us to shift the way we're responding. But where like the real change takes place is in between sessions, because the way that your brain learns that a new behavior is safe is for you to take action on it. And the more you take action on it, and the brain's like, oh, hey, we're still okay. Like, we're not rejected. We're not judged. All of those things. We don't feel those things. Then it's going to start to pave a new path. And the more you go down that path over and over and over again, the bigger and wider it gets. And that old default pathway starts to shrink. So that's why I like working with people over longer periods of time, because it's really about repetition and consistency. Because your brain takes in, I think, 11 million bits of information per second. So it's like we can only really process 40 to 50 bits of information, and we're processing it through our belief lens. So the way we experience reality is based on our beliefs. So if you want to shift that, we need to work on it more consistently and regularly. And I really encourage people to tap in between sessions. Like we'll tap on maybe the deeper things that are happening, like something that formed when you were 8 years old, or I'm helping you to find clarity around why you're feeling the way you're feeling, which is not something that I can tell someone. It's like something that they come to, on their own. They have that realization. I can help them to connect the dots. But it's very much I tell people, I don't take you anywhere you don't want to go. I'm not going to force you to go down a road that you're like, nope. But but your brain loves to answer questions, and nothing is random, even if it might seem random. So it's we can really kind of explore in a session what comes up, and I can't tell someone what is going to come up. Even if they tell me oh, I'm experiencing this and I want to get here, I don't know what's going to come up in between that, but I can guide them.
You're really digging deep into what they need to tap away, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we connected with real estate, and real estate can be very stressful. I love to say Keller Williams coaches to the work-life balance, but that work-life balance is really hard in a real estate world. Do you find yourself working with a lot of women that are in that high-level stress venue?
Yes. I would say it's really interesting because you know how you said your relationships are often mirrors. So I tend to attract a lot of women who are just like me. So a lot of them are very high performers, high achievers, put a lot of pressure on themselves, are high functioning. So they may experience a lot of anxiety below the surface, but no one would ever be able to tell. And a lot of them are business owners, entrepreneurs, or they're in executive leadership roles that what comes with a lot of pressure. And a lot of them have families. Not all of them have families, but a lot of them do.
Yeah, I appreciate that you have the experience that you do, because obviously that lends itself to empathy with your clients and that kind of thing. So when you're working with a new client, how do you approach that? Or I should say, where are you finding your clients?
Yeah.
How are they finding you?
Yeah. So I feel like tapping is one of those things where it's you need to be able to experience it in order to hire someone to work with. And I also think anytime you're doing one-on-one work where we're talking about emotions and maybe what has happened in your past, that requires a level of trust, right? It's you just don't hire a random person to talk about things that you feel shame about, and things like that. So where I tend to find a lot of clients is in doing workshops where I'll do group workshops, or I do monthly women's circles in my community. So we hold spaces where we do tapping and more of I think spirituality, and reconnecting to themselves. But I tend to find that either from referrals, so from a chiropractor, or through group sessions where I can teach a group how to use the practice, and someone will experience a shift and be I'm interested in, diving deeper into that, or I'm really frustrated with this area of my life and I'd really like to be able to move past it with maybe more ease instead of struggle. Or is there I've tried everything and I'm very aware of this, but I can't shift it.
People must be quite a mess when they finally reach you, right?
Not all the time. Not all the time. I feel like a lot of the people that I work with tend to be in some sort of pivot season in their life.
Okay.
So
they're looking for answers.
Yeah, they're looking for answers. And I think they're just kind of frustrated with how things have been going, and they're looking for a different approach. I've had clients say to me that I really appreciate that I don't have to tell you my entire life story in order to get started in this work, that I can just come to you with like what I'm feeling about one thing right now. And by the end of it, I have clarity. I've connected the dots. I know my next steps. I feel so much more confident and at ease with taking those steps. And I think once they start to experience those shifts, they become almost like addicted to the process. Because for myself, like now, I'm so curious about it, like anytime I'm triggered or anytime I feel it, I'm like, like, what is that? Like, what is that connected to? And now I have a tool that I can utilize myself to work on it. But I also still work with like a practitioner, because when I work with a practitioner, I can kind of relax into the process and allow them to guide and lead, rather than feeling like I need to guide and lead and come up with my own, answer the questions at the same time,
Have you ever hosted any kind of retreat? What?
Yeah. So October of 25, I think it hasn't even been a year. We held a retreat in the Smoky Mountains for a group of 12 women, where we had energy work and we also did tapping and meditation. And it was really just like the theme was authenticity. So like coming back to your authenticity and figuring out who that is and how does that version of you show up, and how can we create more trust and safety like within yourself to show up in that way while still feeling okay if not everyone accepts it, or okay if people judge it. Or so it was a lot of fun, and it was one of those things we were like, okay, we got to do this again. That was awesome.
I would love to partner with you for
Yeah.
like a yoga retreat and add all of that into it for sure.
Yeah.
A nice little escape. So what else can you tell me about your business that someone should know?
I would say like the biggest thing about stress, I think sometimes like there are like so many things that we can shift and change. I think there's, I came from this perspective too. It was like, okay, this is the way I am. This is like how I was raised. And it was like, it just felt like those things like couldn't change because they were such like a deep part of who I was. But what I tell people is like, if there's anything that, I don't want to say that you don't like, if there's anything that you're like, this isn't supporting this season of life that I'm in, and I want to move past this because it's unsupportive of that, those are things that you can shift and change with tapping. I would say I know healing is it's like a journey, right? It's like once you open the onion, it's like you continue opening and peeling the onion. While it's a journey that you're about to embark on, when I said like I was chasing success, I think what I was really chasing was fulfillment. And fulfillment is created in the journey. It's not created like when you get to a certain destination. And I think fulfillment, no matter what your job is or no matter like what things look like, is the more you can kind of connect back to yourself and find like peace within, find acceptance within, find compassion within. That's where fulfillment is created. And the more that you like do this kind of like inner growth work, it's the most rewarding, I think, journey to ever be on, is to feel so deeply connected to yourself that lots of things are going to always be happening outside in the world around us that we cannot change. We cannot change how someone responds. We cannot change, or we can't control how other people respond. We can't control what's happening in the world, but we can control how we respond. And this process helps you to do that, so that someone can be doing something that may have really bothered you in the past, and it's just like, whatever, doesn't affect me. Why do I care so much? And I think that's it creates this like inner freedom. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I had a friend recently talk about, peeling back the layers. And I told her, I said, in that conversation, it reminds me of a green onion. Sometimes I'll, trim it for egg, whatever. And then I put it in a glass of water and it resprouts. It's like, yes, you're peeling back the onions, but there's something that's going to grow out of that. That's going to come back to life, And I think the journey to self-discovery, find your authentic self is definitely healing. And I can see where the tapping, realizing your triggers, like you said, would help in that journey for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like, like anytime we're on a journey of growth, especially for high performers, because I feel like, we are kind of like constantly pushing ourselves and challenging ourselves, and we're highly ambitious. And I think that's really beautiful. I think sometimes people think, oh, if I heal this overachieving pattern, doesn't mean I'm not going to achieve anymore. And I'm like, no, it's like you're still going to push yourself and you're still going to challenge yourself, but it's no longer going to be driven by anxiety. It's going to be driven by because you just have like a desire and a want to do that because you love what you do and you have a passion for it, not because you're trying to prove yourself or you're trying to like find a feeling. That feeling's already within you. So
yeah. And with real estate, I've realized that I'm connecting with people for a reason because I have resources or the help or the bandwidth to help them in their life change that is happening. And sometimes that's truly what brings me the joy, not just another transaction, but the person that I'm working with and helping them through that transition. And when I try not to get in my burnout cycle, it's easy to do, but it's always that joy of the transaction and the person that I'm dealing with that kind of brings me back. And okay, I am good at what I do. I enjoy doing it. This is why I'm doing it. And yeah, it's I'm trying to get off the roller coaster of burnout, and I'm sure you can relate.
yes, for sure. And I think that's like one of those things is like, I talk a lot about in my work, like this like capacity bathtub. We all have like a certain capacity. And like, if you think of like a bathtub, like the faucet is the stress and whatever in our life that's coming in, and the drain represents the practices that we have in place that helps to release it. So like yoga, movement, the way that you eat, sleeping, all of those like help to release the stress. And depending on what season of your life you're in, that water level is always kind of like going up or down. I think what I find with a lot of people who maybe haven't paid attention to their well-being is that the water level gets so high and then all of a sudden it's like spilling over the edges and it feels like impossible to like catch back up. And as you get to like know yourself and reconnect with yourself, you start to understand like, how does my body feel when I'm near the edge? Like, how do I know I'm near the edge so that and then can I set the boundaries to be able to like refill my own cup and drain out that stress, while also like the faucet. I think a lot of people think, we don't have any control of the faucets. We don't, but our perception really shifts how our body is perceiving that stress. So shift the perception, then a faucet that might be on full blast might just start to become a trickle. And you can, as you reconnect to yourself, you start to know yourself better. You start to, like, okay, like I haven't been paying attention to this. I need to really prioritize this. But it's a constant like ebb and flow, I think, between like where you're at in your life and like what season, like literal season. I think summer's, probably a busier season for most agents. What season of life that you're in, and knowing that like stress is a normal part of modern life. But there are tools that help you to manage it, make it less intense, shift how you respond. And that all affects like how high or low your water levels are. But there's always going to be some amount of water in the tub. I don't think no stress ever isn't the goal. It's more so the goal is how can we shift and adapt to what's happening.
Well, and boundaries are huge on that. Realizing I'm in over my head, something's got to give. And I think for me, being a busy mom of 3 daughters that are now grown, I was just so busy trying to keep them going, that I kind of lost myself in that mix. And I think that's very common for women in general.
Yeah.
Especially working moms.
Yeah.
And coming out of that unhealthy decade, my body felt it.
Yeah. It's also interesting how, like, I'm going to call it like stress addiction because, you know, there's like, you get kind of like adrenaline rush in some cases, right? But I think there's also a lot to be said for women who like are kind of like in this like, just like go mode where it's almost, but it has to be, I don't want to say it has to be, but like there's a season of your life that's busy and you're just like in go react mode. And then to not have that almost feels unsafe for the nervous system because it's so used to it. So being okay when things are slow, feeling like you're not behind, that you can take a break, things aren't going to fall apart. That's where I would say that a lot of my clients have trouble, is that they're so used to being in go, high producing, high achieving mode that turning down that feeling of like, I have to get so much stuff done feels really destabilizing.
I totally relate. I have a hard time not feeling guilty about not working. I mean, I really give myself a hard time about trying to relax. And it's so backward because I remember a year or two ago going down to visit my daughter, and I was out of town for 4 days. And when you're out of town, you're not doing the chores and the laundry and, you know, you're truly, and I had a little bit of work, but for the most part, I was there and present and clear-minded and enjoying the weekend. But when I came back, I was so productive. And it was because I'd had that rest.
Yes.
And it's so hard to remember that my body needs rest, my mind needs rest.
Yeah. There's like a motto that I really love to follow. And I don't know if I read it somewhere or it just like came to me. I don't know what it was, but it was when I was still working in like tech project management, because in the tech space, they're like constantly like reiterating, and it's like everything's always in like beta mode where we like test, fix it, keep going. It's this constant process that sometimes you don't slow down enough to like actually like stop and think like, what are the implications of what it is that I'm doing? And so the motto is like slow down to speed up. So it's like, how can we slow down enough to see like where are the gaps and where are maybe areas that we're not prioritizing and that we're avoiding. And by putting, at that time when I was in my tech career, it was like, how can we put the process and the systems in place? How can we slow down now and put the process and the systems in place so that we can go fast later? And I think it's such like and I think about that a lot, as like, we're so focused on like, go, achieve the next thing. What if we can just slow down enough to like refill the cup, figure out where the gaps are, put our systems in place. And that actually allows us to be a lot more productive later on, which I think is just a really good example of what you just shared of, you know, being present for 4 days and coming back and feeling so much energy towards the work that you do.
Well, thank you so much. It was so great to kind of chat and hear more about what you do. I should say I'm looking forward to working more with you. I know that we're collaborating on a few things. I think a retreat is definitely in our future.
Yes.
And I will put all the links in the bio so they can find you. You're in Knoxville, correct?
Yes, correct.
But obviously in this online world, the access is there.
Yes, I work virtually with clients all over the country. So,
okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Kendra. It's a fun conversation.
Thanks for listening to Find the Connection. I hope today's episode gave you some helpful insights and inspired you to get involved in your community. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find us. And if you're interested in making a move or learning more about Northeast Florida, reach out to me anytime. Let's keep finding the connection together. Until next time, stay connected and keep thriving.